Coach, on December 9th, you're going to be inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame. First, congratulations. Let's talk about your journey. Who were some of the people that helped you get there?
Yeah, it humbles me when I start thinking about my mentors that I had. You know, it started with Earl Bruce, that was he followed Woody Hayes at Ohio State, and he first hired me in 1986 and became like a father, was a lot like my father, and tough as nails, right from wrong, premium placed on education. And then Lou Holtz became a great mentor and hired me at Notre Dame. Sonny Lubick, I worked for him at Colorado State, and Bob Davie. Those are the four guys that I worked for, and I'd like to think there are pieces of all those guys in our program.
How's it feel to be inducted into the same Hall of Fame as some of your mentors?
Like I said, it's almost like a time warp because I was such a college football historian and nut when I was a kid. You know, I always had the baseball and football cards all over your walls like a lot of kids back then did, but I really started studying, you know, the Bobby Bowden, Joe Paterno, Bo Schembechler, Woody Hayes. You know, growing up in Cleveland, Ohio, the rivalry was during the 10-year war. But it was also when a guy named Tom Osborne first started investing in players. You know, he was the first guy that do the nutrition, the weight training.
Right.
He was the first person that actually invested in the most important commodity, the player. And it stuck with me when I was like 8 years old. I started reading these books, and you know, there was a strength magazine that first came out, and I started reading that, and I just kind of knew at a young age I wanted to do that.
What was your strength as a coach?
I look back now because we're kind of both in a reflective time of our life, and I think I've been asked that question, and as much as you love strategy, I think my strength was surrounding myself with greatness. You know, I look back at the group of assistant coaches that were on my staffs throughout, starting with Bowling Green. You know, there was Dan Mullen was on that staff, Greg Brandon, some other great coaches that went on to be head coaches. Then I went to Utah, one of the best coaches in college football history, Kyle Whittingham, was on that staff. And then I went to Florida and had Charlie Strong and all the head coaches that have gone on to be head coaches. And then Ohio State, you know, obviously got Ryan Day, but many others. So I first would say that the coaching staff, but then the most important is the group of players. Some of the greatest players ever play the game. And the collection of them all, I'd take that against anybody that's ever coached the game.
As you're getting ready to be inducted, what are you most proud of in your career?
That's a great question. I think we were on the front edge of player development. And I remember when I met with Gene Smith about the job at Ohio State, I never really asked for money. I know money became a big part of contracts and all that, but all I said is, this is all about developing our players. Health and safety, number one, but also number two, when they come to Ohio State, they better be maximized, and it's going to be expensive. It is really expensive. Training, you mentioned, I was at Notre Dame, you know, we had no training table when I was at Notre Dame. Bowling Green, no training table. But when I went to Ohio State, we became the first program in the country to hire our own sports psychologist just for football. That person was full-time just for our players. The second thing, we hired our own physical therapist. People think about that nowadays with all the money going on. We're the first one to have just football sports psychologist, just football physical therapist. So we didn't just say we cared about our players, we did. So I'm really proud of that. I think what we did at Ohio State, the infrastructure, people copied it because they see that there's one year in 2014, we started the same 22, ended the season other than JT Barrett because he broke his leg. You know, you can't control structure issues, but soft tissue injuries, the way we treated our players, the way we practiced them. If you have the same starting lineup at the beginning in August that you have in January, it's a great chance you're winning games.
Last question. You now mentor coaches, just like you had mentors. What's the advice that you give to a young coach when they ask you to help them?
It's twofold. Number one is when someone takes a job, and I just learned this through my mentors and through learning from doing it. And that is, the number one thing you got to do is develop and implement a culture. Number two is talent acquisition. If you're spending time on anything other than that, you're failing your program. And then the second thing, I know this, you know, the world's going to NIL and transfer portal. I'm not saying it's bad, but don't ever forget about education and making sure that these players, you have an obligation when that player shakes your hand, you hug his mom, he better have a job someday. And that's you and the university's obligation.
Coach, congratulations again, and enjoy being inducted on December 9th.
Thanks, brother.